Welcome to Karate 360. My name is Kalan Anglos.
I'm Richard Mosdell.
And this is episode 10 of Karate 360.
Double digits.
Double digits. We made it this far.
Absolutely.
And you guys might be asking yourselves, well, what is Karate 360? Well, Karate 360 is an avenue for Richard and myself to bring you all the global news about karate around the world, from the technical, tactical aspect to the training aspect to the dojo competition. Anything that's worldwide karate, we want to bring it to you.
Absolutely. It's our soapbox to chat about what we think about the karate world. And in the process, hopefully, some of it makes sense.
Yes, and with this, we want you guys to join in on us, join the conversation, email us, find us on the social media handles, and any questions or anything, let us know, and we will certainly discuss it.
Meet us, buy us coffee, take us out for dinner.
That's right.
For a cheap date. And if you do want to see us in person, make sure to come to the British Columbia Open Championships on December 10th. It's going to be a great event at the Richmond Olympic Oval, and there's a chance that we might do a live show at night.
That's right. So you guys can hear us live from the Olympic Oval in Richmond.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget the big tournament next year, the Canada Open Karate Championships, June 3rd and 4th, also at the Richmond Olympic Oval. We're talking big. This is going to be huge.
Huge. Be there.
Be there. I mean, I think we've already had interest now from 4 or 5 countries, right from India all the way over to Eastern Europe.
That's great. It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge. So don't forget those 2 events that are coming up. Also, if you do the same style that I do, we're going to have a National Style Association seminar here at Kenzen Sports Karate in Victoria, and that you can see on our website at kenzensportskarate.com. That'll be a big day. That'll be Saturday, November the 26th, because there's going to be the one time a year black belt test on Sunday, November the 27th.
Yes, and 2 of our members here from Kenzen Sports Karate going for their first degree day.
I know. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Actually, I've got a list of people coming for the black belt test for their first black belt test. I think we're up to 12 or 13 now.
Wow. From
different clubs from around the country.
That's great. That's great.
All right, let's start the show.
Karate 360. Let's start the show. You will kick high and I will sweep low. From local to global, the thing that you love, karate.
San Lokumaru. Fantastic.
There we go, guys. Happy Monday morning to you guys listening to us. And again, welcome. This is episode 10 of Karate 360.
I really like our song. It grows on me over time. But I hear different songs in the van for the after-school program almost every day.
I bet you do.
Do you want to hear the one that the kids I just can't get them to get rid of it?
Let's hear it.
I farted. It tickled. My butt cheek jiggled. So I did it again.
No.
Think about listening to that 100 times in the van.
I'd rather not. It's crazy the songs that they hear in school and they can just come up with, and some of them are ones that you hear. Remember probably when you were back in kid, 60, 70 years ago, whatever that was for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny when they come back kind of full circle.
How dare you, sir? 17. That's just yesterday.
Yes.
No. Jingles are good. It's kind of neat to hear. What they come up with, and it's very easy to, when you've got the kids who are, their energy's firing, they want to get in the dojo and they want to kick and punch and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
To, you're serious and you drop a joke and they kind of look at you like, are you joking? Are you really joking? So, no, it's good. And now in the double digits with the episode.
Yeah. So just going along strong.
Well, what can you tell me about what happened in your week?
Well, this has been another busy week for me. Of course, it started off last week watching the UFC 205, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then also just getting back to UVic and doing the lab stuff there, running the physiology lab, and a lot of busy stuff going on there. Of course, those guys finishing up in just a few weeks, so just kind of firing through all that. A really cool lab that we did this week was we were looking at our hemoglobin levels.
Oh, really? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I got, I did it myself as well, but they had to basically check their hemoglobin level. So hemoglobin is just basically the oxygen carrying molecule of your blood. So
Yes.
That's actually what oxygen binds to. And the more hemoglobin you have in your system, obviously, the more aerobic capacity you have. And it's also a level indicator of if you're anemic as well. So took mine. I was fine. Nobody in the lab turned out to be anemic, but really cool to kind of look at it. You have to finger prick yourself, take a little blood sample, put it through a little system, find out that, and also find out your red blood cell count. So it was actually really cool.
I have done that.
Oh, yes.
And it freaked me out.
Really?
Because I was in Japan. What was it? Every year in Japan, for every company you work for, especially if you work in the education system, you have to do a health check.
Okay, yeah.
And we pricked the finger and then checking the red blood cells. And they had 4 pictures on a piece of paper. They had 4 pictures of good, what do you call it? When your circulation is very smooth running. What do you call that?
Viscous?
Viscous, that's it. Viscous. Yeah. And then as it gets worse and worse and worse, and it looks like it's like just gel.
Yes, okay.
Right?
Yeah, that'd be very viscous. Yes. Yeah.
Right? That's not what you want.
That's not what you want.
So then they did mine, sent the sample and came back, and my picture was like the worst picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, holy moly. And then the nurse was teasing me like, you have to change some of your things. Like, everything was good, but that.
That's interesting. Usually you'd find that in sedentary people who don't move around a lot or who have bad diet. So, I mean, I know you've been training forever, so it's interesting.
So they said it could be hereditary.
Could be. That's always an option, yeah.
I had to cut out all those ice cream cups at night.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But then what's good thing is I took it to heart. Like, I really took it to heart.
That's good. Yeah.
So for 6 months, I really tried, like, if it was sugar or something, I really just tried to have one cheat day in the week.
Yeah.
We redid it, and then the picture that came back was the second picture of the sample.
So improvement.
Yeah. But
yeah,
I think I should do something like that now. So
yeah. So no, that was pretty much my week, just doing a bunch of stuff at UVic, and of course still training that boxer. Actually, his fight's coming up here December 5th in Victoria, so he's getting amped up for that. Trying to get him to cool down on his training a little bit. Actually, amateur boxers tend to sometimes get a little bit carried away, and he's got a little bit shoulder injury now, so we got to try and slow him down a little bit and kind of make sure he's periodizing properly and peaking properly.
Oh wow. So. Well, I want to come see this fight. I want to see it happen.
Yeah, it should be good. And I guess next week, actually, here in Victoria as well, is that Fight for the Cause.
That's right. It's a boxing tournament that they put on for raising money for cancer. And people, they apply to go through like 8 or 10 months of training.
Yes.
And then they have a match.
Yep.
I know a guy who did it last year. And they don't normally have any boxing experience. And they have a big gala in a huge convention center and raise money for it.
Yeah, very cool. So that was kind of my week, and busy, fun as always. How about yours?
Well, we had we took a team of 12 athletes to the Saddle Cup in Vancouver.
Yes, you did.
And the youngest was 7 and the oldest was 32.
Yeah.
And we came back with 17 medals.
Yeah, it was a great showing.
Yeah, it was really good. It's nice now that this group that's competing, it's almost always the same group of people.
Yeah.
They are now getting to know all the other people that they're competing against.
Yes. Yeah.
And now, not just in Canada, but also from the States. And then we're obviously getting to see, knowing all the officials and all the other coaches. And with the BC Open a month away, it was a good final warm-up event for them, final preparation event.
Yeah, well, as I was talking to a couple of the other younger competitors here, that are just kind of getting started, is, just getting all that experience and just getting to those competitions is really big for sure. So, yeah, it was great.
What sometimes I'm concerned about is some of them that are young. Has their 10-year competitive time started?
Right.
Because most people finish after 10 years.
Sure, yeah.
Right? It's not a hard and fast rule because every person's different.
Yes.
So I'm trying not to make too much of going to tournaments. I want it to be, especially anybody who's under 12, I want it to be just, an event that they get to do, and it's, no different than, having a nice day at the park or Playland or an adventure center or something like that.
Yeah.
So that, win or lose, they have a good experience. So talking to the parents and talking to the coaches, not to hype everything up too much.
Yes, of course. And sometimes with parents, that can be a little bit difficult.
Yes. And coaches.
Absolutely.
And officials.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's
so
very true.
Everybody has to just be cool.
Yeah.
It's not the World Championships, and we're not fighting for a lot of money.
Yes.
We're spending money to get there. But that was great. That was it was a nice experience, and we had a little bit of time to spend in Vancouver as well.
That's great.
And I got to watch the UFC 205 with my best friend Johnny. So that was awesome.
Shout out to Johnny.
Yeah, shout out to Johnny. Showed up at his house, and he had the chips, beer, and ice cream
Ready to go.
ready to go.
Here we go.
He's like, I know you had a long day. Boom.
Perfect.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. He knows how to please you.
That's right. And I got to officiate at a tournament, so got to see all different shapes and sizes and things of things.
It's great.
Also, on Hante, when you do the draw, if two athletes are tied, interesting to see how the officials go one way or the other way.
Yes.
And there was one match where the athletes got to a draw, and I went one way, and all the other officials went the other way. Actually, I think one of the officials went with me. So I asked them. I said, "Why'd you go the other way?" And said, "Well, red Aka was more aggressive." And I thought, well, but blue scored first, scored last, and while they were less aggressive, they were able to diffuse most of the attacks.
Yeah.
And it was only a 2-2 or 3-3 tie at that point. So interesting to see how people look at things.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm actually sort of liking the idea that the new WKF rule that's going to come in next year, that if it's a match is tied, then the person who scored first an uncontested point will win.
I think that makes sense. Absolutely. Now let me ask you something. Having a competition team that kind of went over, we had 17 athletes that go over. Of course, you're the head instructor here at Kenzen, but you also are a referee. So you were refereeing while they were competing on the mat. And of course, we had other instructors. Craig, of course, was over there as well. But how is that for you, having to be on the mat as a referee and knowing that your athletes are, competing around you and sometimes competing in the same ring that you are refereeing? Are you able to kind of put your own kind of look at it? You're kind of in your refereeing suit now, so that's your role, or how does that go about?
This is a good question. If an athlete from my club is in the ring that I'm refereeing and we don't have any referees to fill, then I just make sure I'm not the center.
Yes.
Right? If there's extra referees there, then I just ask to step off. I don't coach when I'm in my official's suit because nobody knows who I am.
Yeah.
It's bittersweet because you know how I feel. I think someone who's a chief instructor of a club, or at least somebody from a club, should officiate at a tournament.
Yes. Yeah.
I think ideally a club should enter athletes, and they should have one person officiating and one person coaching at a minimum. If they can get 5 people officiating and 5 people coaching, that's great. So I know there'll be no karate community if there's no officials.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm not a fantastic official. I just, do it and study it. I definitely keep studying how to be an official. But it's bittersweet because I couldn't see my kids compete.
Yes, of
right?
course. Yeah.
So even though someone videotaped them, I couldn't stand at the side and watch them. That's my own biological kids and also just the kids from the dojo. So yeah, it's a little bit bittersweet. I like the idea of the chief instructor, and some chief instructors are really good sports karate coaches, so they should coach.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But hopefully maybe get someone from their club that can be an official. But I do like the idea that if you're just, the standard club instructor, you go out and officiate because probably you have a better knowledge and you've been around for a while.
Sure.
And the more you get out there, the more you get aware of the other karate styles. And then somebody else in your club or several other people in your club do the coaching, because it can be really effective. When Craig Sensei's there and Leah Sensei was there, as an athlete, they feel supported.
Yeah,
and
of course.
It's sometimes glorified marshalling, but when Craig will say something or he'll do something in terms of advice that will really just be the right trigger. I remember him saying to my son, James really wanted to kick. This is not this tournament, but another tournament. But he said, James got a really good Jodanzuki head punch. And I remember Craig saying, remember how good that felt? Just keep recreating that feeling. Do that. And then, he did quite well. So, and James is on a bit of a roll. He's on a bit of a roll with the gold medals he's collecting here and there. So, but the good thing is, so far he can handle his losses too. So, so that's a good question. How about you? I mean, you've coached for us.
Yes.
How do you like it when you're on the side of the ring?
As you know, and we've talked about, I really enjoy being on the side of the ring, especially for Kumite. I like being in the chair. I like helping the athlete for sure. I am not obviously a referee. I just do coaching, and I actually really enjoy it, being able to kind of sit in that chair and help the athlete and kind of guide him through. And I think there's almost nothing more satisfying where you tell something to an athlete, like the situation with Craig and James, where you say something, they do it, they score the point, they win the match. You're like, yes. It's just like that kind of moment where you're like, you got it. It's perfect. So I think that's like the aha moment for coaches. And that's just something that I've always loved. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, at heart, I like to coach. That's my specialty, I guess.
Yeah.
It's funny how, like, people never took me seriously when I first started sitting on the side of the ring and coaching. And then when the advice started to work, and I think for me, coaching is the moment that you leave your house to go do the trip.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Especially if you're traveling with the other members. And
everything's related to it. You're looking after everybody, but you're also looking for angles.
Yeah.
The other thing is, some coaches are trying to cut corners and cheat the system. I never really look for that.
Sure. Yeah.
And then in Japan, those first few years, I had to prove myself. It was great because I just tried to be more consistent in everything I said and how I approached things. Yes. And then when the athletes were going to nationals, it was like, okay, I think I really know how to do this.
Yeah.
The pressure cooker of the high school system there is so much higher than anything you can get outside of Japan. Just 10 massive tournaments you would go to a year, plus all the little tiny ones that you're constantly, like, sometimes I remember my wife counting, there were 60 or 70 days I was not home because there was 6 days of training, and then every weekend there was a tournament.
Wow.
And then so that every weekend I was coaching. And then it got to the point where they said I had to officiate. So I had to do all my officiating training in Japan. So I would coach and officiate in the same day.
Right. Yeah.
And I think everyone out there, even if you don't compete, you should really go to tournaments and watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and volunteer, because I think they learn.
Yeah. And I know just sitting in the chair and watching, as a coach, you learn so much. Like, I've learned so much just by sitting in there. I mean, my first kind of delve into the high performance part and sitting in the chairs probably at BC Winter Games in Penticton last year, and I mean, you just learn so much just from sitting in there. And I'm kind of the type of guy where I'll just jump in the deep end and just hope I swim, and usually I do, I think. But yeah, it was kind of cool to see, kind of learn your coaching style as you're kind of going along, and then you're kind of thinking, well, am I doing this properly? And then next thing you know, there's a parent calling you over like, I want you in the ring here for my son, get in there type thing. So yeah, absolutely, I think that makes sense.
Well, we got some big events.
Yeah, coming up.
Where you can be coaching for Kenzan soon.
Can't wait.
And with the BC Open and Canada Open.
Yeah.
It's neat. You get to learn. Well, I guess you could say, like, coaching ru, the coaching style.
Yeah.
You have shimpan ru, the official style.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, and actually one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, Richard, as well, is I know we both watched UFC 205.
Oh, wow, yes.
What an event that was, not only for the karate athlete Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, but just the entire UFC event was incredible. But one thing that I did notice was in that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fighting Tyron Woodley for the championship, the welterweight championship belt, 5-minute rounds. At the end of the first round, he got beat. Wonderboy probably lost that round. He goes back to his corner, and his coaches said nothing. Like, they didn't give him any feedback at all. And I was literally at home yelling at my TV, like, what are you doing? Like, tell him something. Give him some kind of feedback. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that a little bit, and kind of what you thought, not only about the coaching aspect of that and the entire event, but of course the event itself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was for the welterweight, the 170-pound division.
Yes, yeah.
It was a championship fight, so there's 5 rounds.
Yes. Yeah.
Each round was
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
So what was the round ending there? 4th round, or?
No, it was actually after the first round that I
round.
noticed this. Yeah, and then as the fight went on, his coaches started to say a little bit more, but I was still a little bit shocked at the small amount of feedback that they gave him. And
so, which rounds did he really win well, and which ones he 1, 3, and 5 he really won well, right? Was it?
Probably 2, 3, and 5.
2, 3, and 5.
Yeah, 2, 3, and 5. I thought he had.
Oh, that's right. Because 1 he got knocked down.
Yeah.
And he was they were wrestling a bit, and then obviously 4.
4 was.
Yeah, we got to talk about 4.
Round, yeah.
It's a good question, because I've heard some high performance coaches who've really developed good athletes.
Yes.
Say nothing, because they feel that it's all up to the athlete at that time.
Sure, yeah.
And that's not just, I think, in competition, but that's even like, doing your DAN test or they're not giving you any advice. They want you to make your own decisions. And maybe they're hoping that they've trained the athlete to have the intelligence of know what to do. I mean, with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, didn't he have like 57-0 kickboxing matches?
Yes, yeah.
So he had a lot of
experience.
And if those kickboxing matches are 3 rounds or 10 rounds,
yeah.
So he had a lot of experience. So maybe they knew that the other thing too is if that round did not go his way, maybe they knew he was going to wake up. Maybe they knew it's like his family coaching him too, like his dad.
That's true.
So that nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it just comes back to kind of knowing your athlete and knowing what they need. Sometimes you need to be amped up. Sometimes you need to be calmed down. Maybe sometimes you don't have to say anything. So
what would you have done in that situation?
In that situation, I probably would have I like to give very specific feedback, and especially in karate, when the athletes come off the mat, it gives you a good time to give some specific feedback. Of course, in between rounds in the UFC, you only have a minute, so it doesn't give you a lot of time, but give them some kind of specific feedback. I mean, for me, one of the things that I don't like the way he fights, but it's just his style, is he keeps his hands down, and he kept getting hit in the head, so I would have told him, put your hands up, or something specific like that. But again, it comes back to what type of fighter he is, and knowing him and what works for him, what you should say or shouldn't say.
Yeah, and I think for Karate 360 listeners, I think they, universally people are saying UFC 205 is maybe the best card event they've had.
I don't even think there's any maybe about it.
It is.
On a roundabout way, it was the best UFC event ever.
Yeah, and I am not a deep UFC fan. I definitely following it.
I'm a pretty deep UFC
There
fan.
you go, yeah. So even if anybody in karate should watch that match. Just Google it. They should watch it because first, and you and I were texting back and forth, just listening to Joe Rogan's commentating. It's funny because I was saying stuff and Johnny was saying stuff, and then you were texting me, and then Joe Rogan would say it. And how he was. Okay, what should you look for? The way that he was moving slightly back forward.
Very much karate style.
Very much karate style. How he'd move back to dissipate the attack of his opponent Woodley, moving his hands in, getting his legs moving, faking. Now, this is the thing that I've been thinking about a little bit. We've been following him. We're karate guys. And, recently, as UFC evolves, fighting styles evolve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
And, for a while there, if you said, you studied karate, people are like, yeah, karate, whatever. You're punching, kicking air, and you're doing those dances. Yeah. But there's some satisfaction in it because it gives karate not just legitimacy, but
almost
validation that, oh, wow, karate can actually work if it's done correctly.
Yes, of course.
If the wrong person who was never really a good, point fighter to begin with goes out and does it, they're going to get creamed.
Yes. And of course, let's also remember this is still MMA, mixed martial arts.
Yes.
So you need to have more in your bag than just a karate fighter. But going back to Joe Rogan, just hearing him say that, sports karate is going to be the next kind of big style of martial arts to take over MMA, it validates it right there, I think. I mean, Joe Rogan's been in the sport forever. So yes,
exactly. So, in so many ways, 2016 has been horrible on a global scale.
Yes.
But it's been great for karate.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
best since I've been alive, the best karate year.
It's been a fantastic year. I mean, this amazing podcast got started.
Yes.
Karate got in the Olympics. Yeah. Karate athletes are really doing well at the professional level.
Yes, getting more recognition.
Yeah. There's a lot more. There's a lot of things now. I think in every country, even officially, with stuff that's coming forward for karate, high performance will lead the way, but that will bring along way more opportunities for recreational athletes.
Yes.
There's now private country clubs and community centers, reaching out to people to teach karate, to come and open up stuff that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
There's, governments thinking about how they can fund it. If you can get a high performance coach being paid to do 10 to 12 hours of high performance a week, and then another 10 to 12 hours of recreational karate a week, that's a really big bonus for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So things like the recognition that comes through from this like UFC 205 in the fight, I think it's quite interesting. Yeah, and how people coach, at those things. I always try and extrapolate it to like, how do we coach in the club? How do we say
Yes.
something in a Dan test? Or
Yeah.
how do I talk to somebody who's really nervous and they're just a yellow belt?
Yeah.
You know, what if somebody's, you know, they're a teenager, they don't want to go to the adults class? Like, all those are really good coaching moments. And at the end of the day, that person has to make their own journey.
Yeah.
So there's always ways that you can extrapolate, you know, and the decisions that you make. And, you know, the other amazing fight that obviously everyone was talking about
Yes.
was Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez.
Yes. The
For
main
the-
event.
The main event for lightweight, 155 pounds.
And of course, Conor McGregor also started in karate as well. So
Yes.
a former karate guy as well.
Same as his coach,
Yeah.
John Cavanaugh,
Yeah.
who we're big fans of. You or Johnny sent me the link of the interview with John Cavanaugh after the fight, and they said he predicted Conor McGregor winning within 4 seconds.
Yes, he did. Yeah, just crazy. Actually, he's done that before. He's predicted pretty close in a few of his fights. But yeah, just talking about Conor McGregor in general and that whole fight, I mean, just crazy. He's in a whole other level, I think, now.
Okay, so he won in the second round.
Yes, yeah.
Very early in the second round.
Yeah, with a couple of Gekuzukis.
Yes, a couple of reverse punches, absolutely. So he fights southpaw with his right leg forward. His left hand is known for being really fast and
Yes.
strong. He was able to knock down the other fighter, Alvarez, 2 or 3 times before he finally, just by slipping out of the attack, again, diffusing the attack, and then 4 quick punches, very well targeted.
Yeah,
And Alvarez went down,
yeah.
not getting up. And I think he punched him in the head a couple times on the ground.
Yeah.
And then to Conor McGregor then is a champion of 2 weight divisions.
Yeah, yeah. The featherweight 145, which he won, of course, from Jose Aldo, who is also a legend in the sport, and then now the 155 lightweight against Eddie Alvarez. It's just absolutely crazy. First time it's ever been done. Two belt champion.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just, again, really, really good footwork,
Yes.
which, you know, you could practice in the mirror. You could practice in the warm-up of your karate.
Yes.
You could practice that idea of moving around.
And I don't know if you saw his last fight. Well, I don't think actually it was his last fight. His last fight was Nate Diaz, but against, I think it was when he beat Jose Aldo in 13 seconds to win the featherweight championship. They were talking to him right after, and he said, you know, speed and precision will always, or timing and precision will always beat power and strength. Or something
Totally.
like that. So just knowing that, and you can see it in his fight this past weekend, where his precision with that left hand was just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because last night I was watching a documentary on Mike Tyson with Customato, who was his main coach, and he was saying same thing, speed and precision.
But of course, Mike Tyson was power.
Yeah, of course, he had the power already.
Yeah.
You know, one thing we talk about in karate is to develop a strong spirit.
Yes.
You know, if you train hard, you can get through a karate class, you can get out there in the world, and you can do anything. In Japanese, they say the most important thing to learn in karate, and what we're trying to cultivate from people, is shitsuke, which is basically meaning character.
Yes.
So they're coming to us, and we're trying, especially when they're young, we are part of that person's molding system. We're going to mold them. We're going to develop their character. That, you know, don't give up, try hard, overcome adversity, go through the success loop. So if we go back to that fight with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Tyron Woodley in the 4th round, when Tyron Woodley hits Thompson, and I was yelling this out to Johnny as it going 18 punches, 19 punches, and Thompson was covering up. I didn't know when they were going to stop that fight, but they don't stop the fight. So good call on the ref, because Thompson was still kind of protecting himself, like 20 fights. Then Woodley, who was an Olympic level wrestler, gets a full guillotine choke around his neck.
Tight guillotine.
And that guy's strong. And then falls to the mat.
Yeah.
Still in the guillotine choke.
Crazy. I thought that was over.
And permanent neck damage and, like, you know, spinal cord damage.
He was like lifting him off the floor by the neck. It's crazy.
And then he's holding him on the ground, and there's no tap.
Yeah.
There's no tap. The referee was good.
Yeah.
Because they were waiting. And I thought, well, Thompson, he's got to be unconscious. Like, he's just gone into rigor mortis.
Yeah.
And then when his right arm just lifts You can't see his head because it's buried under Woodley's armpit. But Thompson's right arm just starts whacking Woodley in the ribs and just loosening the arm. And then because his head's so thin, his head just popped up.
Yeah.
And then he was on top, just started pounding him, and then the bell went.
Yeah.
You know? And then, had that gone 10 seconds more, he might have won the match just from there.
Yeah. Well, he actually attributed that afterwards, getting out of that hold from his small head.
I can see why.
Yeah.
I can see why. But the thing I thought was amazing is don't think I've seen a fight with someone have so much heart.
Yeah. That's what really impressed me. Just the heart and just the absolute determination that he was not going to tap out. He was not going out without a fight.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be a competitive karate athlete. You don't have to like UFC, but you have to watch him not give up.
Yeah.
Have that been like self-defense, in the street or whatever, or in his mind, he was not panicking. Does it come with experience? Does it come with his character? Does it come how he was raised? I was really, really impressed with that. So some exciting things to think about in the future. Now, I think one other thing we should try. Well, two things is, they think this might be a rematch between Thompson and Woodley.
Sounds like there's going to be, yeah. And Dana White kind of already came out and said that they're. How can you not? I mean, it ended in a draw, right?
It ended in a draw.
The majority draw. So Woodley, who was the champion, stays the champion.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you not have a rematch? It was such an exciting fight. Ended in a draw. Got to redo it.
So would that be like 3-4 months from now, or?
Yeah, probably somewhere in February, March, something like that. Yep.
So Conor McGregor wins, and then the biggest, and I think for anybody who's in martial arts, even if you didn't watch the UFC, you're going to have read about this. There's a buzz where Conor McGregor is calling out Floyd Mayweather.
Well, I don't know if he's necessarily calling him out. I think his fans
are calling him out?
Irish
Okay.
army are kind of trying to get that to happen.
Okay.
And of course, Floyd Mayweather doesn't like that. And of course, for anybody that doesn't know, Floyd Mayweather, probably definitely the best boxer of my generation, and definitely one of the best boxers of all time.
49-0?
49-0.
49-0 over 20 years. He's 39 years old.
Yeah.
Hasn't lost a match. He's made millions upon millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And his reply was, he's done it for 20 years. 49-0. He's won $300 million in a night. He's won $100 million in a night. He's won $70 million in a night.
Yes. Yeah.
What has Conor McGregor done yet? So he doesn't see him on the same. He doesn't see. When a cameraman suggested that Conor McGregor was the Floyd Mayweather of boxing, Mayweather doesn't see that yet because he doesn't see 49-0 fights that he's won.
Yeah. I mean, Conor McGregor's only been in the spotlight for maybe a couple years now, really. So Floyd Mayweather's, like you said, been 20 years. So he had a little bit more time. Boxing's got a little bit more hype, maybe not hype, but more promotion behind it, more money. So I can see where he's coming from, I guess. And, I mean, if they were to box, I think it would be a one-off. I know we've talked about this kind of a little bit off air, but I mean, if they were to have a boxing fight, I think it's going to be anybody has a tough time beating Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match. So it would be tough for Conor McGregor, who was a boxer actually, but it's now obviously a UFC fighter. It'd probably be tough for him, I think, to win that fight.
Yes,
but it'd be a big payday. That's
be
for
a big
sure.
payday. Yeah, it's a payday that McGregor needs, but Floyd Mayweather doesn't need.
Yes.
Now,
they also just came out, I think yesterday or today, that Conor McGregor is planning on taking about 6 or 7 months off as well. He wants to take some time off now. So, again, that puts a little bit more time for Floyd Mayweather to just kind of relax, I guess. So, I'm sure this will just cool over, but very interesting.
It's very interesting. For people who are in the karate world, I always like the idea that not to look just in my fishbowl.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think as soon as you're only in your fishbowl and that being the dojo, you miss so many other interesting things that are going on.
Yes.
And I like looking at everything.
Yeah, and I think I said it in one of our first podcasts here, and I think I'm a big proponent of, is for karate, we need to get as many eyes and as many people looking at the sport as possible. And you look at, obviously, UFC and boxing, they've obviously got lots of money behind it and lots of promotion behind it, but they're athletes, the people know they're athletes, and I think that's something that karate needs to bring too. We need to know, and I think you're starting to see it now with a lot of the social media stuff. You're starting to see a lot of stuff from Douglas Bros and Rafael Agaev and all that kind of stuff, but we need to know the athletes in karate to help build it up, and I think we can look at these other sports as a way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it legitimizes karate fighters that they can train to go into these professional circuits.
Yeah.
Now, I know that Wonderboy Thompson, he does train in jiu-jitsu in his club.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's keep our eyes open. You know, anytime you watch somebody who does a really great performance, it doesn't matter if you don't spar. It doesn't matter if, you know, that's not exactly how you do your martial arts. There's something to learn. I remember watching at Seiritsu in Japan, we used to have a middle school kendo tournament every year called the Fukuda Cup. It was like the first Sunday of February. So being one of the Budo instructors, I had to go help, right? Because it's another Budo art. They had kendo, judo, kyokushin, and jiu-jitsu and karate. No sumo. There's not a lot of sumo.
Okay.
Anyway, I remember watching the kendo kids so fast. You can see where the original rules for karate competition came from kendo.
Okay. Yeah.
So quick. And they, the ability for them to skip back and forth, and the speed and precision that they have with the kendo stick. Actually, I was shooting a video so they could make a promo video of it. And I was walking through the practice area and I got whacked right on the head because they pull the shinai way back over the head. And when they came down, when you bring it down, you actually, from your little finger, your pinky finger, up to your thumb, you move it like an accordion, like a fan.
Sure, yeah,
and
that snap the wrist
snaps
a little
it forward
bit.
faster, right? Whack, got nailed.
So yeah, that's our karate global news of the week. Just a little bit of UFC 205 breakdown, and of course with a little bit of karate flavor. What we want to talk about now is moving on to a little bit of tactical of karate. So this week, we want to talk to you guys about how to move forward in a front stance.
Yeah, because our technical last couple of weeks have been bouncing around things that are actually technical and tactical.
Yes.
So this week, as I've been helping people prepare for their black belt test, how to generate proper energy to move forward, how to properly take off in a front stance.
Yes, and this is kind of perfect for me as well, because I know when I first came here, I wasn't quite moving properly, and I kind of could recognize it, but it wasn't until you kind of explained it to me, the proper way of doing it, that it kind of made a little bit more sense.
Well, let's discuss or explain how I have been taught how to do it and how I do it.
Sure.
And then different styles have different finishing of a front stance punch, right? So
we're talking now moving from front stance forward to another front stance.
That's right.
Walking across, yes.
Yeah. Oizuki in Shotokan, or Junzuki in Wado and Shitoru. And they do have a front stance moving in Goju and other styles, but everyone understands, your left leg, your left arm's out in front, your right leg steps all the way through to become your front leg, and you punch. Yeah. And actually, before I ever went to Japan, I was always, how everybody took off out of a front stance always kind of irked me. Like their hips would slide, or they would bounce, or they'd slip their lead leg back, or the instructor would say, the first thing you want to do to move forward is to pull your back leg in.
Okay.
Which I always thought was counterintuitive.
Yes, it kind of is if you think about it.
So I'll describe the way that I teach it.
Okay.
Initiate the movement by bending forward with your front knee. Then push off with your feet and think about the center of gravity moving forward.
Yes. And what do you think that does in terms of moving yourself forward? Like, I know when you explained it to me and just kind of almost letting your leg relax, your front leg almost relax, and just pushing that forward. What do you think that does to kind of generate that momentum to get you into the next stance?
In Japanese, they call it chikaro nuku, relax the front knee.
Okay.
And it brings your body weight forward, which initiates your body moving forward.
Yes.
And it makes it smooth. And I think that's similar to how they do it in kendo and iaido, is that, and sometimes you see it in karate sparring where someone has their lead hand up and they bend their front knee and lean forward.
Yeah.
Same thing. And then I guess yourself from a kinesiology angle can probably just describe the biomechanics of what's actually happening.
Sure.
But the moment you start leaning into it, your center is a little bit tight, because what you want is an idea of your core not wobbling like any art, right? It could be gymnastics as well as ballet or even martial arts. You want your center to be able to move forward. So you're a little bit tight. You bend your front knee, you slide forward, then you push off your feet, and and then you slip through. That's one part of it. Second part of it is to think that it's called johaku, which means like 0 to 100.
Okay. Yeah.
People think that you load and then blast at 100% for a certain period of time. But what you really have to do is impact your kime, your focus. You have to impact at 100%.
Yes.
And dig into the technique a bit.
Yes. And you always talk about kind of like a gas pedal. You always say start kind of going and then boom, right into the next
exactly.
one. Yeah.
So what I noticed is, especially after I came back, people would jerk. Like almost all the different styles would jerk forward.
Yeah, yeah.
You want your movement to be smooth and quick.
Yes.
And actually, when you think about when you actually break a board, like you break something, and we were breaking boards here the other night just for practice. There's broken boards all over the place.
The kids always love that.
Yeah. Same thing is that you don't start it. You want really fast speed and impact on him, but you're not starting at 100% speed, and you got to be relaxed and commit to the motion.
Yes. And from a kinesiologist perspective, you know, your muscles can't go straight to 100%. Nothing to 100. So that definitely makes sense. And something that you told me too that really made sense was really just think about everything going forward. You're going from one forward stance to the next one. So the knee kind of relaxes, you push forward, the hips go forward. They don't go side to side, they go forward, the body follows, the leg comes through, and you push through into the next front stance. And that really made sense when you kind of explained it to me. Because I know in some styles they kind of teach the back leg comes into your front leg and then goes out to the next stance. And I think while that's technically probably correct for some styles, it kind of gets your hips moving in that side-to-side motion when really we should be thinking about going straight.
Yes. Well, what's the goal? The goal is to have maximum amount of impact force.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
When you actually look at what's happening, like when someone does that move, their foot actually will go slightly into out.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't think about is pulling their foot into out.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you see the hip slip.
Sure.
Different styles have a different finishing. So some do an extra rotation at the end so they can help lock the punch.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I'm stepping with my right leg forward as my right foot lands, I might, and I've seen this happen, and sometimes in the same style, I counter rotate my hip. So if I'm punching with my right arm, I roll my hip towards the right.
Yes, yeah.
I've also seen a hip vibration where they go to the right and then to the left and they lock it.
Yeah.
But it's extra. It's what they're trying to do is lock the punch, like have a stronger base, but they're slowing down the impact force.
Yeah.
And they're slowing down the speed and the fluidity.
That makes sense.
Like when you watch, if you Google the WKF 2016 championships and you watch the Japanese kata people move, there's no auto rotation of the hips in any of the different styles.
No, yeah.
They're doing shitoru, goju, and ryuiru, which is like anan and paiku, right? There's no extra or triple rotation of the hips. The speed and the lock. When you do a reverse punch, it's different because everything in martial arts is about how you align your skeleton.
Yes.
Your muscles are working your skeleton, probably with all sports, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in a reverse punch, you have to step into out because you have to open up your skeleton, open up your trunk of your torso so that then you can rotate as you're getting maximum momentum forward and twist into it.
Generate that power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the practices we did with, and lots of people probably do this, is close your eyes and just walk naturally. And you'll feel your hips go side to side. Then bend your knees, tighten your stomach just a little bit. And then it's like you're doing posture training. Think about your chin in and like someone's pulling your spine straight as if you're balancing a teacup.
Yes, that was something that you told me that really helped too, and especially the engaging the core as well.
Yeah, engaging the core.
That really helped me a lot, and it makes perfect sense, and especially also with posture training, of course, as well. That's one thing they always tell you: make sure your shoulders are back, shoulders down, core is tight. It's like, well, that's exactly what we're doing when we're doing our front stance and moving through. So that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, and then you practice just like geisha walking. You know, it's like you're wearing a really tight kimono and you go back and forth, and then you feel. The first thing you realize is that if you have any sway, or you're wiggling back and forth, or you counter twist your hips as you land your foot, you throw your balance off.
Yeah.
So even in Wado, they some of the instructors, the higher level instructors, say there's a counter rotation at the end just to help lock your arm on impact, but most are just about speed. And you can sometimes see a really good fighter do a full oizuki or jinzuki and score.
Yeah.
Just because they build up the speed and then they reach.
Boom, yeah.
You know? So yeah, So for the people listening, if you want to improve your performance of your regular everyday karate, and of course, take it or leave it. Think about leaning your knee forward and then driving and engaging your core and moving forward. This is what I love about this podcast. We throw things out, and then I love the back and forth because I'm always getting stuff.
Yeah.
Last week was pliability, and I used it all week. And at the beginning of the week, pliability of the hips from doing an active warm-up, right? And moving around, but doing it all week and saying it to the after-school kids and the regular kids.
Have no idea what you're talking about.
At first, like pliability, what the heck is that? And at the end of the week, it's like, Sensei, I'm getting more pliable.
Nice, love it.
It's awesome. So this week, wait a minute, I got to write it down. So this week, of course, things that you know, but you need someone else to remind you.
Yeah, and I think also just the feedback that we get also from some of our listeners, and kind of maybe they do things differently or something like that. So try and talk with them with that. It's kind of interesting. So again, if these are our opinions and this is kind of how we teach it, but if you guys have different ways of teaching it or you're thinking otherwise, let us know. Yeah,
exactly. I think we have a video up. This is ages ago, but on the Kenzen website. On the YouTube page, I have lots of videos I shot in Japan. And there's one of me doing something, and someone wrote this is the worst way you could ever do Wado ever. I've never seen it so bad. And so in the comments, I wrote him a comment. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry that you think that. Please put up a video of what it should, what the kata should look like."
Yeah.
And the person wrote back there's a million of these videos online you can watch. I'm like, oh, they're just trolling me.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
the internet trolls, they're always around.
You can't. Of course, they didn't send me a message. Through one of the social media sites where they have to actually have their real name.
No, of course not.
Right?
Yeah, keyboard warriors.
Yeah. I was like, that's fine. There's so much content out there that you can learn from, that you can watch, but whether people actually apply it, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, when they say nowadays that, I heard this about a year ago, the fitness testing they did in North America, some big fitness test they did of high school kids graduating, worst results ever. The people graduating, this is a year ago, people graduating had the worst fitness they'd ever seen since testing had started.
Wow.
And yet we have all this information.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, this is a little off topic, but physical activity and physical education is going down in the schools, so that doesn't necessarily surprise me, actually.
Well, yeah, what's interesting too is physical education is going down, but people know, my kids know at ages 7 and 9, not to eat a lot of sugar.
Yeah, and stay active.
Yeah, they're getting the messages.
Yes,
they're just not. They're just not sticking.
Yeah,
and there's so many things that can keep you from moving around. So when you move in your Jinzuki, bend your knee. Bend your knee forward. Not a lot. Drive forward with the knee bend.
Yeah. No, it's great. Okay, so this week, the karate training tip that I want to bring you guys is something that came up. I mean, we did just have the Sato Cup kind of last weekend, and this does apply to competition, but it does also apply to training in general, whether you're training in the dojo or doing kind of your own training in the gym. I want to talk a little bit about, sport nutrition in general, but athletic nutrition a little bit too, because one thing that kind of always comes up is what an athlete should eat either before or after a competition or after a training session. Now, of course, for competition, especially for kumite athletes, it's a little bit different, especially if you have to make weight. That's a completely other kind of ball game, so to speak, that there's different kind of things that we follow there. So I'm just going to talk more in general about what you should be eating for your nutrition before and after competition, training, or a Dan test. So just real basic kind of things to follow before a competition or before training or whatever it is. What you basically want to get in you is you want to get something that's familiar to your system. So you don't actually want to start introducing new foods to your system, something that's familiar. Right before, that you just say about half an hour before your competition or your training, you want to get something that's got a high glycemic index, which just basically means that it spikes your blood sugars pretty quickly. So something like oranges are great, and any kind of food that gets your blood. Fruits are all kind of great. All fruits are really good at this. But
macchiato coffee?
Macchiato coffee would certainly do it. And in fact, caffeine is shown to improve performance. That is a fact.
Brings your heart rate up.
It brings your heart rate up, increases your blood flow, all kinds of good things. Yeah, it actually makes your muscles more excitable and Yes, there's lots of studies to show that caffeine improves performance. But
So do we give it to 6-year-olds?
probably not. I would stick to the oranges. Stick to the oranges.
Yeah.
But yeah, something that just gets their blood sugar up. So half an hour or whatever before you go on the mat, or before you do your belt test, you want something that's going to get that blood sugar up. And then after, during actually also as well, sometimes you're on the mat for quite a while. That's when you want to maybe start thinking about getting something like a sports drink. Of course, water is something that's very important, of course, that you want to be drinking before, during, and after. But during as well, sports drinks are going to come in handy because that's going to replenish all those sugars that you've been using, all those carbohydrates that are using throughout your performance. So you want to use that. And then after, you want to think about refueling all that stuff as well. And we always talk about kind of a half-hour window, or more like an hour window after a competition or training, where you want to replenish all your carbohydrate stores. And it is a physiological thing where half hour after you work out, or you have a training session or a competition, your muscles are really hyperactive and they want all that carbohydrate. So you want something, again, that's a high glycemic index, so something that gets that blood sugar up nice and fast, spikes your insulin levels and gets all that going, and you want to ingest that within half hour after your competition. So
when you're talking about, like, for example, right now when we train kids for an hour here,
yes,
I have a rule, like, only water.
Yes. That's fine. Yeah, in an hour.
Because it's just an hour.
Yeah, and just an hour and a half.
And then
the sports drinks is more for competition. If you're on the mat doing several different categories in a day, all day type of thing, and
or a seminar.
Or a seminar, absolutely, a seminar all day. A lot of the times, maybe you're too nervous to actually really eat much.
I find that people who haven't trained for competition will do an all-day seminar, and they'll crash.
Yeah,
like 3 or 4 hours into it, doing an hour, then a break. And sometimes the seminar is very technical, so it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
But they'll crash because they don't know how to manage they just think, I'll have lunch and I'll just cruise.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't really work that way, unfortunately. Yes. So, yeah, you just want to get that stuff in you. But yeah, and certainly for an hour and a half training, water is fine. But you do want to eat something probably before or after as well.
When kids are coming here, I always say don't eat too much, like don't have dinner, because we start some classes at 5:45. Like, don't have dinner 10 minutes before you come into
you
the
don't want
dojo.
to load up. You just want a little bit something to
Yeah.
get your blood sugar up and to get your kind of energy going. And then afterwards is usually within half hour, an hour after training is when you want to get your kind of meal in.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For the BC Open, we should plan this, like, because we're going to have, again, 15 to 20 athletes at different ages.
Yes.
So we should actually do a little, like, okay, when you're finished, make sure, like, we can give this to the parents beforehand.
Yeah.
This is the type of stuff we want the kids to have when they get called to marshal. Then we know they're going to have about half an hour.
Yeah.
So when you get the marshalling call, pound back a few orange slices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then compete. If they're kicking around for a while, have some, sports drinks.
Yeah.
And then what should they be eating right after? Because sometimes the parents will drive. Like, they'll give them, like, really crappy food.
Sure. And that's, not the greatest idea, but.
And for psychologically, I do believe, like, after tournament, pizza and ice cream is cool.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, good thing pizza's got lots of carbohydrates.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of the main thing that you want to kind of replenish, because that's what you use.
But you still have to, you can't just eat poorly afterwards.
No, of course. You want to get something in you pretty quickly, and usually within the first half hour you want to get some kind of liquid in you. So that's why, a lot of people that train at the gym or whatever, they'll have smoothies right after, because that actually gets in your system quicker than solid food. So yeah, having something like that, or oranges, or again, something that gets that blood sugar up right away, right after, is a great idea. So give them the oranges on the ride to dinner or whatever, and then let them have that pizza. Because I think you're right. I think psychologically, you should celebrate having a competition, whether you did good or bad, indifferent, whatever, or your belt test, whatever it is. You should celebrate with a pizza or ice cream or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and if you guys are listening here and you want more in-depth information on sport nutrition and training,
email Kalan.
Email me, and actually on my website, kalananglos.com, I've put together a sport nutrition performance little blog there that you guys can check out. So again, that's kalananglos.com. Check that out it's a little bit more in-depth, and it comes more from the kinesiology world, but lots of good stuff there.
You should read it. I think it's funny when someone says to me, oh, I want to be like a world champion. I want to, like, win gold medals, make the national team. Great. And then, you get something as simple as, like, a year training plan, YTP.
Yeah.
Right? And say, okay, well, here's a PDF that was put out by Coaching Canada or the National, Coaching Institute on what a YTP is and why it's good for athletes.
Yes, yeah.
I'm like, oh, do I have to read it? Like, wait a minute, didn't you want to win?
Yeah.
Didn't you want to win a gold medal at nationals or
Yeah.
make the national team go to the world championships?
Yeah, and it's the same with, nutrition, or it's the same with training plans. Well, obviously YTP, but also training programs, that kind of thing. There's so many aspects that go into competing well or getting your black belt or training properly that you should want to know all these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm not going to drop any names here, but there was one senior instructor talking to someone else who's slightly a senior instructor but below them, and the more junior instructor said, well, I really want to improve my performance. Like, why am I not improving my performance? And the senior instructor said, well, you've got to lose 30 pounds. And someone to the point. And he took it to heart. He went out and lost 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, he's passing his next DAN
Sure.
test.
Yeah.
He was just not fit. He was healthy. He could walk for hours.
Sure.
He wasn't fit. So took it to heart. Next thing you know, year later, came back 30 pounds lighter, way healthier.
There you go.
And was performing much better. So,
yeah.
And that was a case where someone, sometimes people carry weight and that's fine, but that was a case of someone who really should, do that. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so upcoming tournaments. This weekend at the Nippon Budokan in Tokyo is the Japan University Championships. So big shout out to Pete Williams, who just sent me a reminder to say that all the prefectures, these are university clubs from around Japan, are gathering at the Nippon Budokan. And normally the private school universities do a slightly better. But we'll see. He thinks I think he said the Kinki district of Japan. And you're going to think, what? There's a Kinki district in Japan? But it's just happens to be the name. Kinki-dai, so it's the Kinki District University. Dai is the short term. Maybe those guys have a chance this year. So that's going to be this weekend.
So that's the Japan University Championships. By the time this comes out on Monday morning, I guess that'll have already happened.
It'll already have happened.
So we'll discuss that a little bit next week. And then, of course, coming up also December 10th for us, the BC Open. For the Team BC teams, it's their first Grand Prix point championship tournament to get onto the BC team.
That's right. There was a minor one back in May for provincials, but it was so far away from nationals that we made it just for minor points. So it's two major Grand Prix tournaments. So
this is the first one, December 10th at the Richmond Oval in Richmond, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then also on the WKF level, the AKF, that's the Asian Karate Federation, Junior Cadet and U21 Championships in Indonesia are happening November 21st to 28th. And that's the last kind of WKF big tournament of the year, heading into the new year.
That's right. The new year, when there will be no longer world tournaments that the WKF wants to hear about.
Yeah.
Other than the official WKF World Championships.
Yes, which we talked about on episode 9.
That's right.
Karate 360.
Well, since we read that out, I've been reading on different news sites about there's other international sport karate, international karate federations, all style.
Yeah.
And they're having different world tournaments. But their official countries or teams are not participating because the official country teams only go to the WKF.
Sure. Yeah.
So 2017 is closing in on us fast. So thanks a lot to everybody who's been following us on Karate 360. I really loved getting the text messages on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Just listen to the show. So I really appreciate that. We do have some plans to interview some people, and those people know who they are. This podcast was created as a really fun way for Kalan and I to look at the karate world and share our thoughts and talk about it. But for sure, we are going to spin in a few interviews over time as we go along.
Yep. And on that note too, guys, we are going to get the video up as well for YouTube as well. So you'll be able to see our strapping young faces as well as we do these here at the Kenzan Studios in Victoria. So keep an eye on that. We'll let you know. You can go to karate360podcast.com for all the information on that. Also, don't forget to follow us on all the social media stuff, Karate Podcast or Karate 360 on Twitter. And again, on Facebook, Karate 360.
And register for the BC Open. It only happens once a year.
There it is. Guys, this is episode 10. Richard, this has been fun.
Absolutely, man.
And we'll be back next week with another episode of Karate 360. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you guys next week. Enjoy your week.
San Rokumaru.